Welcome to Dave Talks Ball in this October 14th, 2024 episode. It's crazy to say. It's October 14th. I was telling my wife the other day how wild just the fall just flies by. For you blink, I feel like July, August kind of creep by. There's really not going on, especially for us people like you tuning in, I'm sure, who are obsessed with sports like myself. Those are kind of the slow months of sports. So the fall just kind of just flies by. I mean, we're heading into week 8. We're at a week 8 look ahead. We're at a week 7 recap. It's exciting but depressing at the same time. But to my point, it flies by so fast. We got SEC basketball media days tomorrow in Birmingham. So we're going to discuss a little bit of that. I mentioned it. We're going to review a little week 7. And I'll tell you, this year is right up there with 2007, in my opinion. When you factor in it's the first year of the 12-team playoff, it could be even crazier. I mean, it's every week you feel like teams in the SEC 12 through 15, discounting, I think Texas, we'll talk about it a little later, but Texas at a different level right now. And then I think Mississippi State on the back end of the league. But I think 2 through 15, any given day, any given Saturday, so much parity across the board we've gone over between coaching continuity, transfer portal, stuff like that. It's what makes the sport great. I know some people aren't real fired up about it, but I do think it brings an exciting brand of football every Saturday for everybody. So, like I said, we'll talk SEC basketball media days. The AP poll was released there. So we'll briefly talk about that. We'll talk about the road to Atlanta. What does Atlanta, the SEC championship game, look like right now? Who are the contenders and who are people somewhat out of it? There's going to be probably 2 teams that you're like, Dave, there's no way they're out of the SEC championship race. Well, I said SEC championship race, not playoff race. Teams can still be in the playoff without being in the SEC championship game. We'll discuss that. Week 8 look ahead, and then just the week 7 money-making weekend review. We should have had a winning record this week. By half a point, Pitt cost us. Pitt cost us, and I got a problem. I got a bone to pick with Pat Narduzzi and the boys. But let's get right to it. Let's talk a little SEC basketball media days before we get into it. But no, first, we got to pay some bills first. Let's go to Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com and use code SECU at sign up to get your $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. This episode is brought to you by our buddies over at Prize Picks. Go play some of these bets. They are fun to do with. I personally like doing the actual real bets, but again, if you're into these player props, again, go to prizepicks.com, use SEC code SECU, use code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. And tell them your boy Dave sent you, guys. They know who will be sending it over. But let's get to SEC basketball media days here, folks. SEC, I think there's legitimately 10 teams who could make the NCAA tournament from the SEC this year. I mean, I think you're talking, obviously, Alabama, who's a preseason top 25 team. I think you got Auburn, who's going to be in that as well. I also think across the board right there, you got Tennessee, Arkansas, A&M, Florida, Texas. Excuse me, trying to get over a little bit of a cold. Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I think South Carolina, Georgia in that mix. We'll see if Lamont Paris can match it. But I think this is the deepest. Again, I know we cover this. And again, this is SEC Unfiltered, folks. We cover football. As you can see, we have content bleeding out the eyeballs every week. Basketball coming up. And then we cover baseball as well. So when basketball season turns around here, guys, and we start in about 3 weeks, SEC basketball media days tomorrow in Mountain Brook. This is the deepest this basketball league has ever been, and probably the deepest league across the board. I mean, I was listening to the Field of 68, and they even admitted it. And let's be honest, Field of 68, they're a pretty biased Big East channel to an extent. They do a phenomenal job covering the sport, but they're Big East heavy, and they even think the SEC can be the deepest league. I mean, here's the preseason poll for you. They released it, the media. They usually do this, I think, after the season normally, but after the media day. But they're doing it right now. But Alabama comes in at number 1, kind of projected. I mean, the AP, we'll look at it in just a minute, but they came in as preseason number 2. Auburn at number 2, Tennessee at number 3, Arkansas at number 4, first year for John Calipari. Texas A&M at number 5, Florida at 6, Texas at 7, Kentucky at 8, Ole Miss at 9, Mississippi State at 10, South Carolina at 11, Georgia 12, which I think is a little too low for the Dogs. I like Georgia this year, Mike White and them. Missouri at 13, LSU at 14, Oklahoma at 15, and Vanderbilt at 16. Again, guys, a deep league across the board. Quickly wanted to go over. Let's go over the AP poll. They released it. Just quickly going over the SEC teams in it. Kansas came in at number 1. I know I said SEC teams, but I'll give you who the number 1 team is. Where did it go? Sorry, here it is. All right, so we got Kansas coming in at number 1, folks. Alabama number 2 from the SEC. Next day, Auburn at 11, Tennessee 12, A&M 13, Arkansas 16, Texas 19, Florida 21, Kentucky 23, Ole Miss 24. So that's what, 8 SEC teams? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 SEC teams in the top 25, folks. That's pretty salty. Again, I told you I think legitimately 10 teams could get into the dance this year. I'm excited about college basketball this year. I always am. You know, that's Chris Phillips. He always laughs at me. He's like, hey, you love college basketball. I do. SEC football is more of my probably strength overall from working in it. Again, Dave Shumate worked in college football for 10 years, over recruiting departments at a couple of different SEC schools, got my start at Alabama. But really, college basketball is a little bit my passion. It was my better sport when I was in high school. But football, though, is kind of jack of all trades from that perspective. But really, college basketball, though, I'm going to be covering it across the board. Excited for Texas and Oklahoma to be in the league. Big year for Rodney Terry, for the Texas listeners out there. Porter Moser, I don't know how good Oklahoma's going to be this year. So again, bear with me in this episode, folks. Got a little bit of a cough. We got an 11-month-old going to daycare. Brings it back. I bring it to the show. I apologize, folks. Even in the previews today, the Texas-Georgia preview, I was pissing myself off. Felt bad. I was letting Cole and Chris down a little bit for how much I was coughing. Felt bad. But now I'm going to try to hone that in just a little bit, folks. But let's look at the SEC's the first team All-SEC preseason. Mark Sears from Alabama coming in at the guard spot. Walter Clayton Jr. had a big year at Florida last year. Big year for Todd Golden in Florida. Jedi Broome, I think, could legitimately be an 18-10 guy. Could be the National Player of the Year. Big guy down at Auburn. It's like Hy Ziegler back for it feels like his 20th year at Tennessee. Wade Taylor the fourth at Texas A&M. Feel like he's been there since I've been in middle school. Second team, Grant Nelson, really going to be playing that true 4 spot this year with Alabama bringing in Clifford Amore from Rutgers. That'll help Grant Nelson. Jonas Adu transferring to Arkansas. Remember, he was at Tennessee. Crazy world we live in now. Janelle Davis, remember the FAU point guard that got them to the Final Four 2 years ago in Houston? He's now at Arkansas with Cal. Matthew Morrell, another guy. Feels like he's been in the SEC since I was in middle school. Ole Miss, Chris Beard, year 2, they get to the tournament. Josh Hubbard. Dude, I mean, we interviewed Chris Jans in the summer, and he was even like, yeah, I'd be lying to you if I thought Josh Hubbard was going to do what he did last year. Big-time player, one of the best high school players in the state of Mississippi of all time. Third team All-SEC, Chad Baker Mazzaro, kind of jack of all trades, the Energizer Bunny for Auburn. Got ejected in the NCAA tournament game against Yale. I think they probably win that game if they had him, but they don't. But they didn't, so they lost. Third team, Chad Baker Mazzaro, Alex Condon from Florida, Jackson Robinson from Kentucky, first year for Mark Pope. Colin Murray Boyles had a big year at South Carolina last year. He's back. And then the new kid on the block, Tremont Mark, the only Texas or Oklahoma player on the first couple teams in the league. Joe K, appreciate you joining, buddy. Looking forward to the season. New conference. Texas versus Ohio State, November 4th in Vegas. Trey Johnson, Sophie Special. Yeah, big year. Big year for Rodney Terry and the boys. Got to make the tournament. I think they got to be a top 5, 6 seed. Appreciate you listening, though, brother. But yeah, I just want to talk about that. Well, you'll see the SEC Unfiltered channel be talking a little bit basketball tomorrow. But just want to talk a little bit that before we get in it. Because remember, this show is going to be college basketball when we really get into it as well. But let's get to the Week 7 recap, folks. Texas dominates in Red River. Texas getting the 34-3 win over Oklahoma. Just some thoughts. Let's give Texas their roses first. We'll talk about the winners first. I think right now the most complete team in college football through 4 weeks. I think Quinn Ewers got off to a little bit of a slow start again. Hadn't played in 4 weeks. We kind of thought that. But Texas, I think, controlled the game. Didn't really need a lot of offense. I mean, you saw them in the second half going for it on 4th and 2 from like Oklahoma's 30, not even kicking the field goal, just kind of like, all right, what do you know, like the 15 or 20? It's like, whatever. If you don't get this, you'll pump back to us in 3 plays. They did. Phenomenal plan by Pete Kwiatkowski. PK and them did a phenomenal job. Just anticipating what Oklahoma was going to be doing with Michael Hawkins. Not a lot to take bad. Not a lot of bad to take from Oklahoma. I mean, from Texas in this one. Yeah, offense got to get off to a quicker start. That would be the one thing. I mean, Burt Auburn missing back-to-back field goals. I mean, again, one of them only counted, but he missed back-to-back after the timeout. Isaiah Bond, Derek Williams getting hurt. Obviously, Isaiah Bond at the wide receiver spot, Derek Williams at the safety spot. Georgia coming to town this week. ATX, big weekend in Austin, folks. Got the Formula One race in college. Game day will be there. Chris Phillips won't be there. He'll be in Knoxville for the big one. But Texas, big one against Georgia at home at DKR on Saturday night on ABC. For Oklahoma, where do you go from here? Offensive game plan, just atrocious. Atrocious. I'm telling you, I think Brent Venables going to have to make a tough decision about his friend Seth Latrobe this season. But that's why Brent Venables is paid the big bucks, folks. I know he got the contract extension from Joe Castiglione in the summer, but that's why you get paid the big bucks as the head coach to make those decisions. It's not about hiring your friends. That I'm off the Seth Latrobe train because you had 2 weeks to put together a game plan, and that's what you came out with. It's bad. And I understand you have a freshman quarterback. But come on, get with him, get with his strengths, see what plays he wants to have. And if it's going that bad in the first half, I think you got to give Jackson Arnold a chance. I think this week at home against South Carolina in a game that Oklahoma fans are not even expecting to lose. I mean, they may right now, but if you lose to South Carolina at home, that's no offense to South Carolina. They almost got Bama this week. We'll talk about that one in a minute. But Oklahoma's not accustomed to losing to their former tight end coach, who is now the head coach at South Carolina, and Shane Beamer, at home. That you can't lose this game if you're Brent Venables. You can handle Texas being better than you. You can't handle losing to South Carolina at home. Defense still good. They're going to keep them every game. But again, you hear them even on the sideline reporter. I forget who the sideline reporter was for that game, but they said they overheard the Oklahoma defense being, guys, come on, we got to keep it going. We got to keep going. We got to get stops. We got to even score to give ourselves a chance. The defense shouldn't have to be trying to score points to win football games, folks. Not in today's modern era college football. Offenses wins championships right now. Defense can get you. It used to be the opposite. Offense wins you championships. Defense just keeps you afloat right now. They can only hold the rope for so long. But again, big game this week for Brent Venables and Shane Beamer, but really for Brent Venables from a perspective of going to a bowl game. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. But Texas gets the win in Red River. How about that game down in Baton Rouge, folks? How about that game down in Baton Rouge? Hell of a performance by Blake Baker and that defensive staff. Just aggressive. The defense looks more comfortable without Harold Perkins. I don't know if I'd say better because you're never going to turn a player down like that. Just a freak athlete. But he's a tweener. Didn't really have the instincts to play in the box. Undersized to rush the passer. They were aggressive, though. Affected Jackson Dart all night. Just wasn't a good night for Ole Miss across the board from that perspective. But Garrett Nussmeier for LSU wasn't great. 22 for 51, 337, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he was great when he had to be. That ball on 4th and 5 to Aaron Anderson to tie this game up. Beautifully thrown football. When he had to make plays, he did. For me, that takes away an interception. Going back and watch the film, I was more impressed with it after. Initially, reaction-wise, I was like, he played bad. He still didn't play great. I think he would tell you that. But still, he made plays when he had to make it. He was great when he needed to be. Tiger Stadium was the difference. I'm usually not one to say home field advantage. Usually in football, 8 times out of 10, the better team wins the football game, folks. If you listen to any of my stuff, even go back to Mock 10, I say that all the time. The better team wins the football game 8 times out of 10. I think Tiger Stadium was the difference. I still think Ole Miss was the better team. I do. I still think Ole Miss is the better team. Neutral site anywhere else, I think Ole Miss would win that game. They just left some points on the board. I mean, they left some opportunities. Tiger Stadium was the difference. The defense was good enough until the last drive when they gave up some 3rd down and 4th down conversions and in overtime. I mean, Pete Golden won't – it goes back to his Alabama days. You got to rush more than 3, folks. You can even say it to Kane Womack at Alabama. You have to provide pressure, guys. You can't let these quarterbacks who are so good now sit in the pocket. They've been trained for too long. They're too well equipped. They're as best as the sport's ever seen. You can't let them sit back there. Like I said, defense was good enough to win. Jackson Dart and the offensive line really underperformed, especially the offensive line. I mean, they gave up, 5 sacks? Ole Miss got none. It felt like they were all over Nussmeier. But again, give Will Campbell, Emory Jones. They haven't given up sacks even against South Carolina 2 weeks ago. 3 or 4 weeks ago against Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard. They've been getting sacks against everybody except the best tackle duo in the sport in Emory Jones and Will Campbell. But for Ole Miss, where do you go from here? 10-2. What are you, 1-2 in league play? One win over South Carolina, lost to Kentucky and LSU. I mean, your SEC championship race is probably over, but you're not out of the playoffs. You better be cheering for Georgia. If you're an Ole Miss fan, you need Georgia with one loss. That only loss being to Alabama a couple of weeks ago when they roll into Oxford, and you have to get that done. And then 10-2, you may have a shot. If Georgia starts racking up some losses, rolls in with 2 or 3 losses, which most likely would be 2, still doesn't look as winning. I think Ole Miss needs to be big Georgia fans this week. They need to be big Georgia fans. I'm just telling you, folks. But that's a big win for LSU, man. I think these next 2 weeks are going to be critical. And, here's the stat. Here's that stat again, guys. Bear with me. Here is that stat. I said last week, and it ended up haunting Ole Miss. Since 2019, only 2 SEC teams, not counting the 2020 season. Sorry, Alabama. Still think one of the best teams of all time, but wasn't full capacity. Since 2019, only 2 SEC teams have won true back-to-back road games, not a bye week sandwiched in. 2019 LSU, who won it all. 2021 Georgia, who won it all. LSU's next 2 games, back-to-back weeks, at Arkansas, at A&M. They need one of them. I'm not there to say they need both. They just need one of them. They need 2 out of 3, though, of Arkansas, at A&M, and Bama. Those are the 3 next games. They need 2 of their next 3. They need to go 1-1 in these next 2. But again, it just goes to show you how tough it is to win true back-to-back weeks, back-to-back road games. That's the task at hand for Brian Kelly and LSU, coming off an emotional game against Ole Miss. Totally different challenge. You play an Arkansas team coming off a bye. It's going to be hungry. I think it's going to be a close game in Baton Rouge, folks. I mean, in Fayetteville. Just telling you, I think it's going to be a close game. Alabama escapes South Carolina. Alabama gets the 27-25 win. Just another inconsistent performance by Alabama. I mean, what can you say? Jalen Milroe's worst game of the season. You really saw his floor on Saturday. 16 for 23, 209 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. 1 interception, I think, was just a good play by Jalen Kilgore. I mean, Bama in those corner routes, when they get in the green area, like to go those corner routes to Jeremy Bernard. And obviously, Jalen Kilgore done his homework during the week, watched the film, and then the one before the half, inexplainable. It's the only thing you couldn't do. So that was Jalen Milroe's worst game of the season. 4 turnovers in the last 2 games. That's got to get fixed if you want to go win in Knoxville this week. That's that simple. It's that simple. This team goes as far as Jalen Milroe takes them. I think he's got the highest ceiling from any quarterback in the country. But he's probably got one of the lower floors out of the better quarterbacks, out of the draft-eligible quarterbacks. But he can be really bad at times. I mean, in that end of the last 2 minutes of the first half, he cost them 5 points with the intentional grounding safety, then the field goal off the interception right before the half. Cost him 5 points by himself. And that it shouldn't have been a safety. I mean, they were on the 13-yard line, and he drops back. He goes back so vertically at times when he's trying to escape the pocket. It's bad. I mean, Alabama fans know, or anybody who's watched Jalen Milroe, he doesn't traditionally throw interceptions, but he'll take some bad sacks because he tries to get vertically in that pocket instead of sliding up inside it. That's when he's at his best, like he was at the season's end last year until the Michigan game. But this team's going to go as far as Jalen Milroe takes them. You can tell the game plan is about that offensively. I mean, he had, 6-7 more carries on the ground than Jam Miller and Justice Haynes did combined. I think Bama's got to start getting Jam Miller, Justice Haynes real carries because I think you can establish the run with that interior. I know Jaden Roberts is hurt, but I do like the interior with Tyler Booker, Parker Brailsford, Jaden Roberts. I think Tennessee, if you're consistent, can get got if you stay with the run game. I mean, look at Florida. I think Tennessee's defensive line goes up the field vertically so well, and they're so well coached by Rodney Garner. He stockpiled that room. Give him credit. But I think you got to keep them going sideways. Make them think. Second guess, just like Bama's defense was playing against Vanderbilt. That half second, just to make you freeze, because Jalen Milroe is so dynamic in the run game. That can be the difference in between a 3-yard gain and a touchdown if that linebacker doesn't fill the gap, folks. I'm just saying, I think Bama, and we'll talk about Tennessee in a minute, Keenan Peely, their linebacker being out for the season. I think that's going to be a big factor. Big factor. I'm previewing the Bama-Tennessee game tomorrow with Chris Phillips. That's something I'm going to bring up. But again, Bama just defensively, it's not the brand of Alabama defense people are accustomed to seeing. Lack of physicality, poor tackling. I mean, the first drive out of the half, and Rocket Sanders just tackles a high Jahad Campbell, just standing high in his stance, and just gets ran over. No one goes backwards when Bama hits you anymore. They don't fear the Alabama defense. There's no attention to detail. There's no physicality. Lack of awareness a little bit. Dumb penalties. It's like, look, I know that was a soft personal foul call on Jahad Campbell. Didn't really mean to get in his hands in his face, but you know People now in sports, it's a business, professional football and college football. They're going to protect the most important position in all of sports, and that's the quarterback spot. So lay off. You know they're going to throw the flag there. So you know that going into it, you got to be smart enough to slack up a little bit there. But Escape did everything wrong in the last 2 minutes outside of the Damani Jackson interception. For South Carolina, gritty performance. Down 14-0, 4th and 9 conversion. Went for it. I love the play call by Dow Loggins there. Defense is good. It's going to keep them in it every week, but they need to start collecting some of these wins. It's a big game for them in Oklahoma this week. They go on the road. Is this emotional loss, those close games, does this get them? I mean, is it easier for Oklahoma? Y'all tell me in the comments. Is it easier for Oklahoma to get off the blowout loss and bounce back in a must-win situation compared to South Carolina's situation? I'm asking. Probably get a little bit easier. I know it's your rival, but it's probably a little easier to get over it if you're Oklahoma, if we're being honest. But Alabama coming up, they go to Knoxville. I don't think it's a playoff elimination game like I hear a lot of people saying, but it's an SEC championship game appearance elimination game. I think if both teams have a chance to go win out, finish 10-2, they're probably in the playoffs. But I don't think it's a playoff elimination game, but the winner feels pretty good about their spot in the playoffs. I mean, again, 2 through 15 this league's week to week. It's like the NFL. I've never seen it before like this in the SEC, and I've been following this league. I'm 35. I feel like I've been following it for 30 years, I feel like. But no, I mean, big game for Bama. I mean, this is more than just your typical cigar game. It's a big one. In Knoxville, is this team mentally and disciplined enough to go into the loudest environment they've played in? I mean, some of these guys like Malachi Moore, Tyler Booker can tell some guys that haven't been there what it's like. I mean, Jalen Miller was on the sideline backing up Bryce Young in 22. Y'all remember that epic game. What's this team's mentality? Are they going to be disciplined enough to win that game? Because that's what it's going to go take to beat a good team in Tennessee at their own house. South Carolina, they got to start collecting some of these wins. Tennessee hangs on in Neyland. They survived the Florida Gators 23-17. I mean, the way history is going, if you're a Tennessee fan, you got to be fired up with just a win over Florida right now. I know it's a bad Florida team. Billy Napier's probably not going to make it. But for Tennessee, the offense is an issue right now. The offensive line's not very good. John Campbell, Lance Hurd aren't getting it done. Wide receivers banged up. Brew McCoy, Squirrel White. Chaz Nimrod's not ready. Waiting for Mike Matthews to step up. Nico, that was the first game you can legitimately say he wasn't good in. But the defense, really good. The defense is a really good squad right now. It is. Rodney Garner, Tim Banks have built that up. But I do think that Keenan Pili injury is going to be big. Torn ACL out for the year. I mean, they have the Jeremiah Talander kid right after him. I don't really like any of the depth outside of Arian Carter there. And he's not even a depth guy. He's a starter. He's a good player. After that, though, I feel like when I was going back watching the Florida game, all the misdirection stuff, those guys were all over the place. That's going to be a key. If I'm Nick Sheridan, Kalen DeBoer, I'm immediately going to talk about, hey, we can run the football this week. I think Alabama may run the football now, especially with this injury. Hope all is well with Keenan Pili. Tennessee avoiding an epic disaster, just like Alabama almost did as well. But Tennessee, I mean, the offense, Nico, you can tell Josh Heupel does not trust him right now. I like the opening drive, but after that, once they started getting a little pressure, you made him uncomfortable. Alabama cannot sit in a zone this next week. If you're playing against Nico right now, you got to bring pressure. And if I'm Josh Heupel and Nico, you got to start running the football, son. Again, don't be taking as many shots as Jalen Milroe, but I think you'll get more into a rhythm. Hey, if you're outside the pocket and it's breaking down, no one's going, go pick up 7-8 yards. I think it's going to get you comfortable, get your feet wet. That would be my advice to Nico. For Florida, what was Billy doing? Why do you not go for 2 there? Why would you not go for 2 there? I mean, you're essentially you have nothing to lose. If I'm a Florida fan, I'm almost a little pissed off. Florida wasn't built to go win in overtime. Graham Mertz went out with an injury. Prayers to him, too. He's out for the season. It was DJ Lagway, a true freshman, in overtime where Tennessee's really good on defense up front in a short field where you get the ball at the 20. Why wouldn't you call your best 2-point conversion play? It looked like he was, but if it was the swinging gate play that he had lined up out there, he probably made the good call not to go, but I'm sure you have a better play than that. So it's like he was just trying to get Tennessee to use a timeout or something. It was dumb. You go for that. I mean, give him credit for having them ready, but you also cost your team the game at the end of the half, having too many people on, just dumb decisions. I think if Graham Mertz doesn't get hurt, call me crazy. Tennessee fans may not like this. I think Florida wins that game if Mertz doesn't get hurt. Obviously, Lagway has the higher ceiling, folks, but I mean, Mertz looked good, looked comfortable making checks at the line of scrimmage. I think they score enough to win that game. I don't think it was that crazy. But for Florida, they got Kentucky coming next. Whoa, what does that look like? I have no clue about that game. No clue about South Carolina, Oklahoma. No clue about Florida, Kentucky next week in the Swamp. Tennessee hangs on, though, a big one against Alabama. I already mentioned that one. SEC championship game eliminator. It wasn't pretty, folks, but the Dogs got it done. The Georgia Bulldogs, 41-31. For Georgia, the offense looks better. 605 total yards, 459 through the air. Carson Beck's best game. The defense, however, looked rough. Gave up 385 yards, 306 through the air to Michael Van Buren, true freshman quarterback. Georgia's got secondary issues. I brought it up before the Alabama game, and I questioned it. Now, I didn't even fully believe it, but I do now. Janelle Aguero at the nickel star spot, just struggling. Doesn't look good. I don't know why Ja'Cory Thomas can't get on the field more, but Georgia can't rush the passer. Outside of Damon Wilson, there's no one who rushes the passer. Where's Michael Williams? I know he got banged up against Clemson, but it's time to put your big boy britches on and start playing. So they need your help up front. The inside backers, Raylan Wilson, C.J. Allen, haven't been playing well. Georgia's got a lot of holes on that back end, folks. I'm just telling you right now. If I was Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann, I'd be worried going into Austin this week. I'll be honest. It's a win. It's an SEC win, but it's a disappointing performance. Kirby Smart, everybody probably saw, I have to bring this up, pushing Michael Van Buren. Look, it looked like he obviously didn't mean to push Michael Van Buren. He put out an apology today. It looked like he was getting pissed at a defensive staffer. Saw a white shirt. Because remember, the coaches' polos usually are the opposite. Georgia's in red at home. The coaches' polos were white. Exact opposite of my black shirt. What do y'all think of this tonight? Got the fresh cut today, too. But I think he was looking for a defensive assistant, and he was just pissed off. And I think he probably just saw red like a bull and just first person in front of him shoved him. Does it make it right? No. Does he deserve a suspension? No. Should there probably be a fine? Yes. I'll leave it at that. Anyone who thinks Kirby Smart pushed the kid on purpose, you're higher than a kite. That's what you are right now. He didn't do that on purpose. I think any realistic person would understand that. I think he saw white, thought it was in a defensive assistant coach, wanted to ask what's going on because they were giving up 306 yards through the air with a true freshman quarterback on a bad Mississippi State team to your defense that has a standard. He wanted answers. Michael Van Buren, wrong place, wrong time, doesn't make it right. I'd fine him. He shouldn't be suspended. Greg Sankey's probably like, I'm not suspending him the week of this Texas game. Because Greg Sankey's a businessman. He knows how this works. They're not going to suspend him. But trip to Austin next. I just mentioned it. Can you get the defense right in a week? I think it's bigger issues than that. I like Texas a lot in this game, folks, as this game gets closer. I think everybody's going to be, Georgia's going to be fired up. I mean, Kirby Smart does throw propaganda around that program about 7-5, like Vladimir Putin does Russian propaganda over there. I mean, he's got to believe in people that they're going 7-5. They could show this on a loop in the Butts-Mehre facility. I think legitimately Texas could win this game by double digits, folks. I think Texas could win this football game by double digits. We put the Texas-Georgia preview out with Chris Phillips and Cole Thompson today. Go check it out. I don't want to spoil my prediction, but I think you're going to be a little surprised by all three of our predictions there. But that's what's next for Georgia. For Mississippi State, give Jeff Lebby and his staff credit. There are 2 road games at Mississippi State, at Georgia, with Michael Van Buren, the Baltimore native, the St. Francis native. I think he's going to have a big future. I think this could be their future quarterback in this system. I know he was interested in Oklahoma late when Lebby was there, and that was the connection to getting the startable. I like what they've done in these games. They've kind of played to their standard a little bit. I know Texas played with Arch Manning, but that was an impressive showing this week. 31 points against Georgia, and I know they have holes. I just talked about it, but still, it's impressive. Hey, give them credit. Again, like I said, when these big donor folks are sitting at the country club in Jackson, Mississippi and Madison, Mississippi, drinking their cocktails next to their Ole Miss buddies, who probably don't have much to say right now either, because they're close to the same conference record, even though Ole Miss is better. They want to be like, hey, I mean, we got that true freshman quarterback looks pretty good, and we're not just getting blistered by Texas and Oklahoma. I'll tell you, those spreads matter. Don't think Jeff Lebby's immediately going to refresh the Vegas betting lines on Sunday afternoons, but he's smart enough to know in year one. We're probably not going to go win a conference game, but if we can be competitive in some of these now, we could have some stuff to hang our hat on. Again, it's never great to have a losing record, but give them credit in these tough road games so far. And then, how about the Doors, baby? Just keep winning. Keep winning. 2013 win over Kentucky. I was wrong. I thought Kentucky would win this game. I thought Kentucky. We didn't have time to do where Dave was right, where Dave was wrong, or he was wrong. But this is where Dave, myself, was wrong. I thought Kentucky would win this game. I thought the line was a little too high, but I thought Kentucky would win the game. For Vanderbilt, I know Brian Kelly will probably get SEC Coach of the Week, or in case I missed it. Sorry if I didn't. Clark Lee should get it again. after getting that team ready to go on the road to play an even better Kentucky defense than what Alabama has, to get that win and control it and never trail, impressive. Give him the SEC Coach of the Week. Again, they play the most complimentary football brand in the league right now. I mean, the way their offense controls the tempo, time of possession, again, like plus 30 minutes. Kentucky only got 8 possessions. That puts so much pressure on these offenses to go score every time they touch the football. Remember, Alabama didn't play bad. I think he scored on 5 or 8 possessions. And probably if they don't turn the ball over, score some other possessions 2 weeks ago. But you put so much pressure on those offenses to go score. And your defense isn't playing a ton of snaps. So how did Vanderbilt always lose games, guys? Obviously, the top end talent, but they didn't have the depth. Well, if you're only playing 45, 55 plays on defense, it doesn't really matter what the Vanderbilt defense depth looks like because you don't ever see it because they're not playing a lot of plays. That offense is just winning games. Diego Pavia went down a little bit with an injury, but that game in 2 weeks when Texas comes to town, Vanderbilt gets Ball State this week. They should win this. Texas comes to town next week. Watch out for College Game Day being there, folks. Kirk Herbstreit and Ben may not even have to leave the hometown. For people who don't know, he lives in Nashville. But that would be a wild scene there. I mean, to beat Vanderbilt, here it is. If I'm in a coin toss, I don't defer. I take the ball, and I want them to trail. They haven't trailed in 2 weeks. If you could get up 14-0, 17-0 on them, how would they react? You get them out of their game. They can't control the clock. Diego's got to go pass outside of his own standards. Not when he doesn't want to pass. Teams know they're passing. Vanderbilt's offensive line is not built to withstand pass rush and obvious passing situations. I think that's the case there. That's how you beat them. I think Texas and Sark would do that. Kentucky, the Wildcats got introduced to assignment football. Again, you got to understand. When you're playing this Vanderbilt offense, you're not going to get, if you're a defensive lineman, a bunch of TFL, sacks, stuff like that. You need to accept. You got to do your assignment so the guy behind you can make the play. I think they learned that. You can tell Mark Stoops is emotional after the game a little bit like, I tried to warn him. Again, you can't simulate this offense. Your scout team can't simulate Diego Pavia because he's like a basketball point guard, and he's so good with the ball handling and holding that mesh point late. Your backup quarterback and stuff can't really do that. I mean, probably the best guy to simulate it would be his backup, Nate Johnson, who, remember, was at Utah last year, beat Florida. But what do we say about the Kentucky win? What do we say about Kentucky after the Ole Miss win? A lot of winnable games in the next 3. Hosted Vanderbilt, go to Florida, host Auburn, could have won all 3, could still win 2 of the 3. But this is when you question Kentucky is in the games like this. Not against Georgia, not against Ole Miss. Because guys like Deion Walker play with a high motor in those games. They don't consistently do it in these games. I warned you. I took Kentucky. I learned it the hard way too, but just facts there. And then finally, Missouri handles business in Amherst. Again, whoever scheduled this game in Amherst, Massachusetts. But they get the win 45-3. Missouri, this game went about what you expect. I mean, we saw Brady Cook. We saw Drew Pine, backup quarterback that came over from Notre Dame. Ground game churned out. Marcus Carroll, Nate Noel, 231 yards. Shut down, only 3 points to it. Everybody remembers this guy. The quarterback for the Minutemen of UMass, Taysom Famashon. Remember him, everybody? From Connecticut, I think, went to Clemson. You had to remember that name if you follow recruiting. Maybe I only know it because I had to when I worked in recruiting. But that is it for the Week 7 recap. Keep holding on. Let's go to the comments for me real fast. Joe K, we talked about it. Joe K, Quinn Ewers seems to still be a little banged up and was very rusty. Trey Wisner in blue ran it 60 times. Play of the game was the fortuitous hustle fumble recovered by Silas Bolden. Yeah, that was a game-changing play. Who thought that'd be Silas Bolden's first touchdown in a Longhorn uniform, by the way? But that was big. He got that back. I still think Texas wins, but I'm with you. Texas D was solid. Spiffy, McGee, Georgia 44, Texas 24. I'd be really shocked by that, Spiffy. I appreciate you listening. But Georgia's got a lot of holes right now. They're banged up. They're potentially in their 3rd center. Again, we'll go predictions. I mean, for the SEC Unfiltered channel, I already put out the predictions. But on Thursday, we'll give some other official predictions. Appreciate you listening, Spiffy. Texas hasn't faced a top 90 offense in this game. Kirby brings the junkyard dogs. I'd agree with you, but they're banged up right now, too. Spiffy, also fair to mention that Georgia has faced nothing but running quarterbacks. Ewers will be the least mobile. Could be 7-8 sacks for Walker and Williams. I mean, maybe. Do you really believe that, though? I mean, Quinn Ewers maneuvers in the pocket probably better than any quarterback in the conference. Like, not from like taking off and running, but just having a feel where that pressure's coming. I don't really think about I don't think of just being a great maneuvering quarterback just because you can go pick up positive yardage. Just how you move within the pocket and stuff like that. Like take Jalen Miller, for example. He can take off and make plays sometimes, but also he'll go vertically and lose you 13 yards. I think Ewer's the best quarterback they've played so far. Manny Alcantara, how does South Carolina stack up against Oklahoma, Dave? I kind of like South Carolina right now, honestly. But that's a toss-up game. Can South Carolina get over that emotional loss? It's a big one because, again, you got to keep internal motivation. After they lose this game, you have a bye week 2 weeks before A&M comes to town. The Vanderbilt game looks a little tougher. You hadn't won a game in 4 weeks at that point. That starts to hit a team mentally. You're out of any kind of championship race. It's a big game for Beamer and obviously Brent Venables and his squad as well. I don't see Oklahoma scoring a lot. I trust South Carolina's offense more than I trust Oklahoma's offense. But again, what's Oklahoma going to look like? Are they going to give Jackson Arnold a chance? So many question marks. I wouldn't touch this money with your money. I wouldn't touch this game betting with your money, Manny. But I do like South Carolina as we stand right now. Spiffy, Tennessee 31-20, Georgia 44-24. Yes, Oklahoma will come back faster. South Carolina will be depressed. Yeah, that's a little bit of my concern too. I can definitely see that. Milroad doesn't play as good on the road. I mean, does anybody? UT Bags, he's back, baby. Go Big Orange, he says. I'm seeing a Gump team that's good in the first half and a Tennessee team that's good in the second half offensively. Gump's defense ain't great in either half. Georgia defense gave up a lot to Mississippi State. Yes, they did. A couple other segments here, guys. Let's go to the SEC. Let's go to the road to Atlanta. Let's go to the road to Atlanta. Who has a real shot right now, folks, to go play for the SEC championship in Atlanta? Remember, the national championship's in Atlanta as well. That's not what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking strictly playing for the SEC championship in early December. Who is that? Sorry, it's my kid Bottles, the other room in there. I think there's 6 teams. I think it's Texas, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M, Alabama, and Tennessee still. I think Missouri and Ole Miss are out. I know Ole Miss probably won't be a shock to some because they're 1-2 in the league right now. Have a hard time seeing them winning a tiebreaker over LSU. I know you lost to Kentucky. They wouldn't be in it. But Missouri, I know they only have 1 conference loss. That's the A&M. And the schedule's not terrible. I don't trust you. I don't think you won't lose another game. Once you lose 2 games, you're probably out of the conference race because you got to talk about these tiebreakers coming in too, guys. I mean, hell, I'll pull up the tiebreakers. SEC football tiebreakers. We'll briefly talk about them as well, announcing the tiebreakers. Before we go into the teams, here's the tiebreakers, folks. First, head-to-head competition among the tied teams. The second tiebreaker, record versus all common conference opponents among tied teams. C, record against the highest best placed common conference opponent in the conference standings and proceeding through the conference standings among the tied teams. D, cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents among the tied teams. E, capped relative total scoring margin versus all conference opponents among tied teams. And F, random draw of the tied teams. What if we got to F? Again, we'll be coming back to these. I promise you, we'll be coming back to these tiebreakers before we get going. But it's going to be wild, some of these tiebreakers. But I think it's a 6-team race. Texas, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M, Alabama, and Tennessee. And I think one of Alabama and Tennessee will be eliminated from the SEC championship race. I don't think Missouri and Ole Miss are technically out of the playoff races yet. But I think of the SEC championship race, they're out. Let's look at it. Let's pull up the Texas football schedule. Texas wins this week. You can already punch them a spot in it, folks. I mean, you can easily just punch them a spot in it at that point. Here we go. Share my screen with you. Yeah, if Texas wins this week, you can punch me because they got at Vanderbilt, Florida, at Arkansas, Kentucky, and at Texas A&M. I have a hard time seeing more than 1 loss there. If they win this weekend against Georgia, I think you could almost, again, as crazy as this season's been, it's only going to be week 8. If they beat Georgia, I feel pretty good. You could, if you're a Texas fan, you could at least be putting some reservations on the docket in old downtown Atlanta. Maybe go to the Omni. Just a suggestion for me right down the street. Who else we got here? Let's go look at some other schedules for Georgia. They say you lose this, Georgia could definitely be out this week as well, folks. If they lose to Texas this week, they're out. Still got a game against Florida after a bye week at Ole Miss, which will be tough. Tennessee at home will be tough. UMass and Georgia Tech. This is it for Georgia. Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. At least one of them will be out, if not 2. If not 2 this week. Let's go to LSU. Well, let's just go to Tennessee real fast since they're on the schedule right there. Again, Tennessee, elimination game from the SEC championship race with them and Alabama this week. They got a bye, Kentucky, Mississippi State, at Georgia, UTEP, and at Vanderbilt. Very manageable schedule. If Tennessee wins this week, it's only one conference loss. That trip to Georgia would honestly probably be a good shot to go. I mean, it's probably an SEC championship berth. Now, again, at Vanderbilt, tougher than you're expected. Again, God, can you imagine if Tennessee lost out on an SEC championship berth again to Vanderbilt? I know in 2016, I was on the Auburn staff. This loss for Tennessee, and thankfully it happened. No offense, Gump. But that loss to Vanderbilt in 2016 with Josh Dobbs, Butch Jones, the year they beat Georgia and Florida and didn't get to Atlanta, that loss to Vanderbilt sent us, the Auburn team, to the Sugar Bowl so we could get blasted by Baker Mayfield and the boys. But anyways, let's go to Bama's schedule. Again, Bama loses to Tennessee, they're out. But they got Missouri at LSU, Mercer at Oklahoma, and Auburn. I think Bama's got a tougher slate left than Tennessee. That Missouri game that next week will be scary. That's a little terrifying if I'm an Alabama fan a little bit. Not because Missouri's so great, but Alabama can lose to anyone this year. Who else we got? Let's go look at – sorry, I lost the schedule there, folks. Let's go back. Who am I missing here? Oh, I'm trying to go. I need to go find somebody who play. All right, Florida plays LSU. Sorry, folks. I was trying to see all right, LSU schedule here. Again, remember I said their season's going to be made here the next 3 weeks, especially the next two. At Arkansas this week, at A&M. Remember, only two teams since 2019. 19 LSU, 21 Georgia have won back-to-back road trips. True back-to-back road trips. Bye week, Bama at home, at Florida, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma at home. If they win 2 out of 3 after go against at Arkansas, at A&M, and Bama, that's one conference loss. I feel pretty good about the Tigers. I'll be honest with you. I don't think they do that, but I feel pretty good about them. Texas A&M, manageable schedule as well. LSU at Mississippi State this week. LSU at home, at South Carolina, bye week. New Mexico State at Auburn, and they host Texas. They win all 3 of these at Mississippi State, LSU, and at South Carolina. You got to feel pretty good. You'd have 0 conference losses heading into at Auburn and Texas, not counting New Mexico State for obvious reasons on a conference game. But even if you lost to Texas, you may be getting a repeat in Atlanta. How would they even game plan for that game, folks? If Texas A&M and Texas played twice and they knew it going into it. I doubt we know going into it, but what if we did? That would be just wild. We talked a little bit about it on the last episode as well. And then finally, that was it. I broke down all the 6 contenders. I mean, right now, if I had to say who's going to be in Atlanta, I would say Texas and Texas A&M. Because I think Texas A&M is going to beat LSU. That's who I would say. I think Bama's schedule, even if they beat Tennessee, is a little tough. You still got Missouri at LSU. Tennessee wins this week, though. It gets interesting. It does. It really does. They got that trip at Georgia that they couldn't lose. They'd be playing probably for a chance to go to Atlanta in their trip to Athens. For LSU, got to win 2 or 3 of Alabama, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. For A&M, got to feel really good about their schedule if they can obviously take care of business this week against Mississippi State. But if you can beat LSU, that's that trap game against South Carolina. But again, if South Carolina starts mounting up losses to Oklahoma this week, bye week to A&M, they got the bye week before you. But again, that's 4 straight weeks. What's kind of, again, I always talk about internal momentum now. Internal momentum. When there's nothing to play for, people start doing self-preservation, looking out for number 1, folks. They start looking out for number 1, coaches and players. Remember, that could easily happen if South Carolina mounts up 1 this week. That'd be 3 straight losses, 4 straight weeks without a win. That could happen. LSU, like I mentioned, they got a shot. And then Tennessee. If I had to rank them in order, I'd probably go Texas, Texas A&M, LSU, Georgia, but they could be eliminated this week. Tennessee and Alabama. I probably like Alabama's chances last, but I still like Alabama's chances. Again, I don't think the Alabama-Tennessee games is a playoff eliminator like I've seen a ton of national media talk about. The loser, if they went out, is probably still going in. And I know you know that because you're a smart college football fan because you're watching my show. Let's be honest. But I don't think it's an elimination game. But you could legitimately have 2 teams out of this 6. We could be down to 4 talking about this next week. If Georgia were to lose, then obviously someone in the Alabama-Tennessee game in the 3rd Saturday of October has to lose. So you could have 4, but we could be talking 5. But yeah, that's how I'd rank them right now. I go Texas. If the SEC championship was played next week, I think it'd be Texas versus Texas A&M. But I'd go Texas, Texas A&M in order of confidence. LSU because of schedule. Georgia, Tennessee, Bama. And I put Tennessee above. Alabama, because still till this night, I got to give prediction tomorrow, and I'm still on the fence with the Alabama-Tennessee game. I see a path to victory numerous ways for both teams, but obviously the loser's out, but the winner. But I mean, Tennessee's schedule is more manageable on the back end than Alabama's is, like I mentioned. But just wanted to go over a little bit of the road to Atlanta, not national championship, SEC championship. Remember, I eliminated. I don't think Missouri is really going to be competing for it, and I don't think Ole Miss. Doesn't mean Missouri can't get a big win, maybe in Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. They got a big win against Auburn at home this week at Fairhope Field. But I think it's fair. No one's going to argue Ole Miss is out. Let's see what Gumps is all fired up about in here. OU should have never taken Arnold out. He was a beast at Tennessee. He was hyped. Mizzou should have lost Vandy. You're right. Vanderbilt should be 3-0 in conference play. How about the moron Gump fan that called you and Cole Bama haters on the reaction video? He probably permitted that mullet, fried brain cells. Yeah, I didn't even see that. Thank you, though, for sticking up for us there, Gump. A&M could be a challenge for UT Junior. Elko looks like he's putting – yeah, it's going to be a tough game for Texas. But what if they play back-to-back in the first year? It'd be wild. It'd be wild. If Tennessee doesn't get their office together, they aren't winning 9 games. Tennessee beats Gumps and leg humpers but loses Mississippi State. Jeez, I hope that doesn't happen to you, Gumps. But 2 more segments. Look ahead, and we'll go over my Week 7 recap. A little better this week, folks. Week 8 look ahead. Week 8 look ahead here, folks. I mean, we got 11 a.m. kickoff, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern on ESPN. Auburn at number 19. Missouri favored by 4.5, point total 51.5. Big game for both teams here. Like both of them I feel like Auburn's going to get one of these next 2 against either Missouri or Kentucky. It's a big one for both teams. Missouri's got to bounce back from that embarrassing loss. 12:45 p.m. Eastern SEC Network, South Carolina at Oklahoma. We talked about that one. Oklahoma favored by 3, total 40.5. I think the wrong team's favored in this one, honestly. I mean, I know it's at Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, but I trust South Carolina's offense right now. I'd pick South Carolina right now. Low-scoring game, as you see. Point total 4.5. But this will be an interesting one. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone on ABC. First game of the ABC doubleheader. Alabama at Tennessee. Third Saturday in October. We all remember the 2022 one of college football's greatest games of all time. Bama opened up. I think it's a 1.5-point favorite. It's up to 2.5. Point total 55.5. This game could go so many different directions. I think Keenan Peely being out for Tennessee will be key. Jalen Milroe on the road. Is Alabama man enough? Are they disciplined enough to go get it done? Can Nico Iamaleava start playing better? Tennessee's defense is going to play good. So many questions. I'm excited to break this one down for you on Thursday. 4:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone on the SEC Network. Texas A&M at Mississippi State. A&M favored by 15.5. Total 56.5. This is a game A&M in the past would go slip up and maybe lose. Can't let it happen, Mike Elko. Big one against LSU next week. 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Number 8 LSU at Arkansas. LSU favored by 3. It opened up at 1. I think this is a toss-up game. Point total 54.5. I could see this one going either way. Not ready to give that prediction on that one yet. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone. Ball State at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt favored by 26.5. Total 58.5. Vanderbilt should win this game. It's a bad MAC team before the big matchup against Texas next week. The big one, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone on ABC, ESPN Plus. Number 5, Georgia at number 1, Texas. Texas favored by 3.5. Point total 56.5. I'm telling you, I like Texas here, guys. I feel pretty confident in it. I think Georgia's banged up. Is Drew Bobo going to be going at center? I mean, Jalen Wilson's got to be back. It's time for Carson Beck to go win a big game. What is the best win Carson Beck has? It's not the Orange Bowl against Florida State's second string. Is it a win in Knoxville last year? He hadn't been getting it done in the biggest stages. He needs a big game this week. He can't go have a bad half. He needs to have a good – you can't look back on it this game if you're a Georgia fan and be like, Carson didn't play well enough. He played great in the second half against Bama, but the first half, he was a big reason why they were down. I just think Texas is going to be too much. 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone on the SEC Network. Who the hell knows in this one? Kentucky at Florida. Kentucky probably needs it more because I think the writing's on the wall for Billy. Florida favored by 1. Point total 42.5. I really don't know. A lot of palms up defense on this one, folks. I don't know who's going to win this one. I mean, DJ Lagway's getting the start. Graham Mertz out for the year. I don't know. I really don't know. That's looking ahead to week 8. And then just reviewing quickly. Money-making weekend. We went 4 for 4. Should have went 5 for 3. We are 30 for 44 in the season. Not good, folks. Just above 40%. But we're going to get above 55% on the season. We are. I promise you. That was my promise for you at the beginning of the year. I'm not letting you down. That goes into championship week, too. Conference championships. But here we go. Maryland Northwestern over 45.5. We've been good on Fridays. College football can move to Fridays. Would be great. I'm just kidding. I'd give up my bets to not give up on Saturday. Saturday's great. They hit 47. That won. Oklahoma plus 7.5 in the first half did not win. Thought it was looking good in the first quarter. Was it 21 to 3 at half? That did not win. Ohio State -3. As you saw, Oregon 1-1 straight up. So that one didn't hit. USC +5. I won that one. Penn State with the last second field goal. Georgia Tech -4. I think they ended up winning by 7 against North Carolina. Georgia, Mississippi State. This was my biggest miss of the weekend. I was pretty confident in this one. Under 55.5. I think they hit the 70 point. Yeah, I mean, they hit the 70 point from that standpoint over there. Yeah, what is it? 72 points, 41-31. I lost that. Florida team total 20.5. I went under, hit 17, won that one. Pitt, this is the heartbreaker. At a conference right here, folks. Pitt -2.5 against Cal. Cal cross country trip after the close loss to Miami. Felt good about the Panthers and Pat Narduzzi. They won, but they won by 2. I lost with the hook. We needed 5 and 3 this weekend. We set at 500. It's not good enough. I don't know what to tell you, folks. We're going to get it on the right track, but I don't know what to tell you. So there we go. My wins. My 4 wins. Maryland Northwestern over 45.5. USC +5 against Penn State was a winner. Georgia Tech -4 against North Carolina was a winner. Florida team total under 20.5 is a winner. And damn you, Pat Narduzzi and the Pitt Panthers, that half point not getting it done. But guys, a little bit shorter episode. I kept you under an hour. We're usually going 75, 80 minutes. I kept you under an hour. Tell your wives you're welcome for letting you to get off here a little early. And for you ladies, tell your husbands you're welcome for not going to watch that show on Netflix. You're watching Dave Talks Ball. That's where you need to be on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone. We covered a lot on this episode, folks. We recapped Week 7, SEC championship race. I think it's down to 6 teams. I think at least one team's going to be eliminated this week, if not 2. We talked SEC basketball media day starting tomorrow. Hit us with a follow. Hit us with a subscription. We're going to be covering basketball. Remember, it's SEC Unfiltered, folks. Content bleeding out the eyeballs, not only for football, for basketball and baseball. We covered the big 3 here. My Week 7 money-making weekend recap. And, guys, you know what Thursday means. It's Prediction Thursday. I get fired up for it. Let's go to the chat room one more time before we get out of here. UT Bags, I appreciate you joining us. Nico has nighttime vision issues. Daytimes, he's been perfect, accurate balls at maybe 2 other QBs. I hadn't seen that theory out there. Maybe it's true. Mert screws himself up, celebrating, not even acting stupid. You're right. Best regards to him. Georgia's defense isn't the typical Kirby shutdown D. No, it is not. Short church service tonight. Laugh out loud. See you Thursday, bro. Yeah, just the throat a little bit, and then we didn't have a gas. The gas usually carries us over to the 75-minute mark. So I kept you under, Dumps. Again, tell your wife thank you. You can go watch that show with her now, man. I'm doing you a favor. But, guys, I appreciate you listening. Have a phenomenal rest of the week. I will see you Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's prediction time. We got 2 big ones, and I think we got a big third one too. Watch out, Arkansas, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Florida. We don't know. I'm sure they will all be great. They've been great so far in the wildest college football season that I can remember. But for Dave Shoemate and Dave Talks Ball, you have a phenomenal evening.